At Schreier, Water Citizen Media, and a special edition of the Water Show for WEFTEC, and I'm here at another one of the exhibit hall spaces that is actually, the big sign says Esri, but this sign here says Burns and McDonnell, and I'm here with Brian and Brian, and you guys are going to have to stand together so I can actually get you in one shot. This is actually really skinny, so actually pretend you like each other. So get nice and close. Okay. So I was just saying that. So tell us what Burns and McDonnell is.
Well, so Burns and McDonnell is a full-service architect engineering firm. And so what Brian and I do inside the company is we work with all of our different architecture and engineering global practices, but we provide technology solutions. So that's why we're here today with Esri, because Esri is a key technology that many of the water and wastewater utilities use to manage their assets and their overall data. And so we work with that often in our engineering projects, but then we often help our clients use those systems to run the utility better, whether it be for mapping or websites or even for asset management and work management.
Nice. And by the way, there's a lot of noise in the background, so make sure you're nice and loud. And what do you do in the office?
So I work for Brian, he's my boss. I am a project manager, so I manage GIS and technology consulting projects for our company.
So personally I was a planning major at Colorado State and did my dissertation using GIS for a spatial decision support system, which is actually where I learned how to do interviews, semi-structured interviews for knowledge-based systems. But so many of the answers were spatially defined, of how far is this, how many of those within a square mile, etc. Right? So GIS, a lot of times people, and is this one of your maps here, or yeah? So basically, GIS, these are the people who create all sorts of spatial. Well, you explain what GIS is.
So GIS is a digital map. In the water and wastewater industry, oftentimes that's a digital map of your infrastructure. So your water, sewer, stormwater, pipes and manholes and structures.
And usually it's more than just images, it's also you click on this point, you get all the data behind it.
Smart maps. So you can actually click on an asset in the map and see the details about that pipe or the manhole, maybe the condition, the age of the infrastructure, when it was installed, etc.
Now, I used to work with a big environmental consulting firm, Golder Associates, and sometimes the old school engineers would sort of look at those GIS as, well, we're going to do the data first, and then you put on a map to make it look pretty, right? So how are you really integrating and making full use of the capabilities of these smart maps in your data analysis, data collection?
Yeah, and I think that was a misconception early on GIS, was it was ability to make a pretty map. And it does do that, and it still does that very well today. But the real power is what you said earlier. Everything has a spatial location. So having that information, we can now do a spatial analysis and say, show me all the places that have pipes that have had breaks in the last 6 months. And I can start to see that, and I can see, oh, that's also where I have extra corrosive soils, and it's also where I have these other spatial issues. And I can use that to better determine what I should do with my utility. I should change my maintenance practices. I should do a different capital improvement planning process. So I use the data in that smart map to really see where in the city those are going on and see coincident things in the same place. It can really change my maintenance and overall behavior of how I run and manage the utility.
Brilliant, brilliant. Be sure to tell my old boss that back there. So, but yeah, get back to consulting firms. So like I said, I also work with a consulting firm, and the consultants are just a critical part of this industry, these companies of experts, right? And usually you have masters, PhDs, experts of some sort get hired by these firms. And often the utilities, when they have a really sticky problem that they don't have in-house, or if it's a smaller, medium-sized firm or utility, they really rely on the consultants to help them with their issues. So what is that relationship that you see? What do you see going on in this industry with the relationship between the utilities and the consulting firms?
Well, I think like always, everybody's trying to figure out how to do more with less. Yeah. So consultants can come in and try to give, I like to call it kind of a steroid shot. We can bring a set of expertise in a technology or an engineering or a planning space that may not be natively sitting in a utility and really help them move the needle forward and hopefully help them be sustainable in that. And so a big part of what we do in the technology space with Esri is a lot of our customers have it. and they know it's a great tool, but they don't have the time to explore the latest thing they could do or do all the different analysis really going to help them. So we can help them do that, show them how that works, and help them do that better. And so, like I say, I call it a steroid shot. It's like, give me a little booster so I can get to the next level and move the needle in a great direction.
Nice.
And for me, technology, it's important on that as a consultant. There's no point of doing technology unless it's going to help you do things better. So we do a lot of that. We see that you guys own Lucity, you own CityWorks, or you own Esri, and we come in and help you get the benefit of that tool. So as a consultant, I feel like that's our job, is to help you get better as an organization. And I think that's a key part of the EcoStructure.
Now, one of the advantages of being with a consulting firm, and for someone who perhaps a little ADHD like me, not wanting to get stuck on just doing one project, and you're constantly doing something new and cool and exciting, right? Is you get sort of the perspective of what's happening in the industry or in a particular area, you in reuse and whatever you're working on. Now, the development, we've done a lot on innovation and the development of water clusters, for example. We've also worked with a lot of the water resources research institutes, some of these organizations and the associations that have that broader perspective. Is that changing? It used to be the consultants were kind of a gatekeeper. It's like if you wanted to sell your technology to a big utility, first you had to talk to their consultant. If their consultant told the utility it's okay, then you could get in. I mean, is that...
I don't know. I think there's still some of that, but I think there's also, a model that Esri's going with is a great example of they're really deploying a lot more configurable tools.
Who is that?
Configurable tools.
Okay.
So it means the threshold to make it do a lot of things very specific to your business is lower.
Right.
So I think that makes it a tool set that's more, a technology and a tool set that's more open to you without the need of the consultant. But I will also say that we maybe bring the expertise of seeing how an airport does something that in that industry is cutting edge that could be useful to a city, but they hadn't thought about it related to their office building or their wastewater treatment plant. So there is some benefit of that perspective.
So that cross-sector...
But I do think the tools are getting to where they're much more flexible for people to be able to take ownership and do what they want to do, which I think is exciting. Even as a consultant, it's exciting.
Yeah. Now, one other area that we also get involved with is innovations in communications and new media technologies as well. Not just the technology side, but also the how do you communicate effectively about water. And, a lot of people talk about it in terms of the value of water, but it's not just that. It's also, how do you communicate new technologies? How do you communicate issues, both the positive and negative? The consulting firms often play a role in that, and talk to permitting agencies and public meetings and stuff. How does that, how is that changing over the years as the industry's becoming more aware of the importance of communications and outreach and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, and I think communication, a great example, what we bring to our show now is using a piece of technology. It's called the story map. Its whole purpose is to communicate information. Yes. It can communicate all the way down to very, very detailed information or high level. So it can be a broad brush story about what you want to tell about why we need to potentially increase rates to keep our water utility at an appropriate level to serve the citizens. It could also be a very pointed thing about here's where we have all the lead connections that are still out in the city and how we want to tend to working on those. So I think bringing those tools, and the consultants help with that, but bringing a tool set to really get information out that's consumable, since everybody likes these things, you can make that stuff very consumable to a wider range of audience.
Totally, all the mobile friendly.
Pictures of 1,000 words.
Totally.
The map is worth even
more.
Do
you have a story map up here? Awesome.
This whole thing actually is a story map right here. But
cool.
We pulled together different projects that we as a firm have worked with our different clients on. So actually one of the projects that we worked on has a big public outreach component. So it's Kansas City, Missouri. They have a program called Keep Out the Rain. So it's an inflow and infiltration reduction program, and they're using mapping and GIS on the very front end of this program to help citizens see if their property is within the project area. So if I go back up here and I look at the map, I can see the blue areas. I can type in my address and I can see right away, is my house, is my property in this project area? Am I going to be affected by this Keep Out the Rain program?
So inundation and overflows, and you're using a lot of words for something that people have seen a lot of with the hurricanes, which is what?
Flooding problems, flooding
thank
issues.
You.
For
Get
sure.
that F word in there.
Definitely.
Yeah. No, in fact, we just came back from the Floodplain Management Association event where when they planned the event, they were actually talking a lot about Oroville Dam, which was the largest evacuation from the flood risk of a dam failure in California, largest non-hurricane related evacuation. But now, I mean, we just saw the whole nation glued to their TVs watching the flooding of Houston. So how valuable is it to be able to convey that information of saying, you know, if there's a hurricane, if there is, the snow melt, that the river overflows, you're in danger. You need to think about an evacuation plan. I mean, what do they do with this information? Is it just saying, hey, guess what? You could get flooded, or are they also providing information about evacuation plans or about putting your house on stilts, or where do they go with this?
Yeah, so I think it's a combination of providing information back, but it even goes to the next step. They have gathered this information and helped use that to better plan for future. They might change the way infrastructure is set up in an area. They might look at how levees are set up. So they're not only helping in emergency response, which is extremely acute and important at that time.
Right.
We need to get people safe. We need to get utilities and the infrastructure back to the right way. But we've also gathered that in a way in that smart map where we have that legacy data. We can use that to learn going forward. And once again, can use that to maybe guide what I do as a utility or as a city or as a county to better prepare for that.
Yeah, be more proactive about reducing the flooding issues that you had. Like in Kansas City's case, if you're in one of these project areas, the city will actually pay for improvements on your property to address some of the issues that they're seeing on the sewer system. I mean, it's a great program, and they really needed to get the word out about it, and one of the ways they did that was through mapping.
Nice. Now, speaking of emergencies, the hurricanes, were you guys at all, you have offices in Texas, in Florida, in the islands, Harvey, Irma, Maria?
Yeah, we had people affected in both our Florida and our Texas offices, and we had people displaced. People in Houston maybe still are displaced, and it's definitely affected us as an organization, and it affected our customers and affected our employees in those locations. So it's a serious thing.
Were your clients calling on you for assistance getting some of this real-time data during the hurricane? How did you guys get involved?
So I know that we actually have a practice that does UAV flights.
Yep.
So UAV is what?
Unmanned aerial vehicles, so drones.
Drones.
And they were actually deployed to go down into, I know in Florida, and help some of the power companies down there survey their infrastructure to see what had been damaged as a result of the hurricane.
Okay. Yeah, we just
one area we helped out with.
Nice. We just visited a booth. We've got the video up on our. It'll be part of the collection, talking about their drones and how they've been using them for industrial in these large areas where you can have your little drone fly over all your systems.
Yeah, we use them for that, but in emergency response, it was a great way because a lot of the distribution level of the electrical system and stuff, a lot of the utilities may not have enough detailed data, or they may not be able to sense what is all down and try to figure out how to even go triage it effectively.
Right.
So
well, and even the danger of going into an area with down power lines or just flooding.
Back out of harm's way and take care of that and get a very, very good data to actually plan your next step. Emergency
response. Great. Well, thank you guys so much. So we're here at the Esri booth and with Burns McDonnell and with Brian with a Y. And thank you very much for your time. And we're here at WEFTEC.